seeing the whole book, seeing the whole project, seeing that whole character come to life was just like, it's not often that trans people get to relate so closely with a character, whether it's on TV or in a movie or in a book. And so it was really cool to like have somebody I could relate to.
Friends, I'm Danny J. Norwell, and this is this week's edition of the Snapshots of Spain book chats. Today we're going to be discussing Will, which is the 7th story in this short story and novella collection. And today I have a very special guest I know many of you are excited about. Tyler, aka Billiet, will be joining us later today. But before I bring him on, I'm going to kick off this book chat the way that I always do, just sharing with you a little bit more background on the story and reading to you a short excerpt from the novella. Excuse me. So, to tell you a little bit about Will, I always say that this is a story of self-discovery and transformation. Specifically, it is about a main character who goes abroad to Spain for their study abroad semester and comes to the realization that they may be transgender. And then the story follows those early stages of that journey. So Billy was incredibly instrumental for me in helping write this story and inspiring the story to begin with. So can't wait to have him on. But like I said, I will share a quick reading first. And just to give a little bit of context, if you are familiar with my other short story versions, the main character of this story is actually one of the Cinco Amigo friends in versions. In that story, you would have known her as Hannah, and in this story, she starts as Hannah and then is the person who becomes Will. And we'll get into dead naming and that topic when Billy and I chat. So just to give you a little bit of warning in the excerpt I'm going to read today, it's from the early part of the novella. So at that point, Will is still going by the name Hannah and still using the she and her pronouns. So we're still talking about the same person here. It's just early on. In fact, this is an excerpt from when Hannah is doing the Camino de Santiago, again, that we talked about during the versions book chat. So I will read to you 2 short excerpts and then we'll have on our special guest. Okay. It was on the final day of the Camino that a realization washed over me. That last day was a treacherous 39-kilometer stretch that finally made me understand why pilgrims showed up at the cathedral looking so triumphant at all hours of the night. I was turning over the facts once again in my head, considering just how perfect Jeff was, and yet how I wasn't wholeheartedly into being his girlfriend. I realized that the issue wasn't Jeff at all. It was the second part, being his girlfriend. I'd never been attracted to Jeff because I wanted to date him. Like a wave crashing over me, I felt invigorated and out of breath at the same time, realizing that I didn't want to be with Jeff. I wanted to be like Jeff. At the same time, walking along the uneven Camino terrain, I didn't quite know what that meant. Still, the shift within me was unmistakable. Just having formed those words in my mind, I want to be like Jeff, was enough to recognize that I had stumbled upon something significant. And then fast forward a little bit to when they finish the Camino and Hannah is back in Santiago. It continues. All of a sudden, that one simple thought I'd had on the Camino consumed me. It hadn't felt life-altering at the moment, but it was beginning to rock my world. Without any forewarning, everything was about my overall identity, not just my relationship status. I thought I'd figured out what I needed to know to make things right with Jeff, but it turned into so much more than that. If I desired to be like a man more than I desired to be with a man, did that mean I was a lesbian? I searched for the answer on Google. Except for some unsavory video links, it returned nothing of use. Instead, I searched, I feel like a man. What does that mean? It wasn't completely true. I didn't feel like a man, but something inside of me said that I wanted to, and so I was curious about the direction my subconscious was taking me in. The results for that search were far more telling. A few more reputable journal articles popped up, as well as plenty of YouTube videos. The common link between all of them was the word transgender. I had heard it thrown around in casual conversation about diversity and inclusion on my college campus, but I didn't really know what it meant. I clicked on the link for a video that showed an effeminate-looking man. I wouldn't have been able to explain why to anyone else, but something about his presence spoke to me. When the sound of the video came on, I was taken aback. The man had a feminine voice, too. He was talking about what it meant to him to be transgender. I can't express how it felt to listen to his explanation other than to say it felt like a wave crashing over me, that same feeling I'd had at the end of the Camino. It felt incredible to hear someone else speak the thoughts I was having, even if I wasn't quite sure what they meant for me yet. So I will leave that there for now, kind of give you a taste of what you'll find in this novella, and I'm going to invite Will to join us. Let's see, I always seem to struggle with this one. Here. I'm so in the zone of the story. But like I said, the story was inspired by Billy, not fully based on his life. Sorry about that. Hey there.
Hi.
Did you hear me calling you Will?
I did, but I was like, it's fitting. It's very fitting. So
It's too funny. But I mean, like I said, I just kind of get into this story, and we'll definitely have to talk about that, how there are some parts of it that are based on your life, but definitely not all of it.
right. It's a little bit different.
Well, thank you all for those of you who are joining us today. Just to let you know a little bit more about Tyler, aka Billiet. We actually studied abroad in Spain together. That's how we first met. And it was really because of you that I had the idea to write this story, and because of you that I was able to make it come to life, and to do so in a way that felt authentic and respectful. So thank you so much again for being so involved and for being here today.
Yes, I feel very honored. I had a lot of fun working with you to help make Will authentic and real. Like, it was a lot of fun. It was a great time for us to catch up, and we got into a lot of really good conversations in doing so.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, because this is a story of the early stages of Will's transgender discovery and starting in on that journey, would you mind sharing a little bit about that experience in your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I actually just reread this whole story too last night and this morning just to refresh my memory, and I love how much I connect with Will, which obviously makes sense because I, helped you write this story. But I forget that he's, based off of me. And so as I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, I really connect with that. Like, I had the same experience. And so much like Will in the story, has this discovery and realization while he is studying abroad in Spain. That is also where I learned it. I cannot claim that I discovered or made the realization. Other people made that realization for me. But I was spending my semester in Spain, and unlike Will, it was friends back home, college friends back home, that were like, hey, we just watched this documentary and it was about transgender people, and I really think that you should look at it. And so I was like, what are you guys talking about? And so I Googled it, and much like Will goes down a Google YouTube rabbit hole, I did the exact same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, there is a word to describe what I'm feeling. There's a word to describe me. And that rabbit hole started, and it was much of the same motions that Will went through. So that was a lot of parallels.
Yeah, for sure. And I forgot to mention, if anyone who's here has questions that they want to drop here for Billy as well, by all means, you can do that. I certainly have a lot of questions for you myself, because I'm so excited to get you on and share with viewers. But anything else that comes up, just let us know and we'll try to get to all the questions. Because I did mention it in the opening, I did want to talk with you a little bit about dead naming, because this was like something that actually made me uncomfortable when I was writing the story and when I was writing like the description to put on the book, because I don't want to be disrespectful and I don't want to do the wrong thing. But can you share what your perspective is on it? And because that's also something I worked a little bit into the story.
Yeah, so when Megan confronts Will about that same situation, how would I refer to you in the past? That is something that we talked pretty extensively about, and that is very much a unique experience, and not every single transgender person is going to have the same response. So I helped, influence Will's response. And my perspective on that hasn't really changed. Again, it's going to be different for every single transgender person that you ask. Um, for me, I'm very much so aware of how I lived my life for the first 26 years, and that I lived my life as a woman, and I went to an all-women's college, and I did sports, and I competed as a female athlete and all that. And so in talking about my past, especially to anybody who knows I went to an all-women's college, like how, like that would be really awkward. So I definitely do not shy away from me personally. You can, use my old name and feminine pronouns when I talk about my past. Now, it does feel weird just because even though that was me for 26 years, like I have been living this way for almost 7 years, and this is much more fitting and much more normal. So it feels weird, but I don't take offense to it. When I legally changed my name to Tyler, that's something that, I told my family, like, you all know me as, this person with this name for years. And I don't hate that name. I don't hate that person. It's just not fitting, especially when I go into a situation where I'm meeting new people who only know me this way. And so to me, it's not so much dead naming as like, that was the name I was given at birth. The only little bit where my perspective has changed now is that I don't tell new people that I meet, I don't tell them my name, just because it doesn't matter. If they find out, if it comes up in conversation, especially if I want to tell them I was a collegiate athlete, I did all this. Okay, well, you Google me, you're not gonna find me if you Google this name. So that's still something I share with people. It's just very situation based, and like, I have to be comfortable and trusting of the people that I'm sharing that information with as well. So again, it's unique to my experience, and I think we put that into Will's experience as well, but the conversation that Megan and Will had about it was a fantastic way to handle that entire situation.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think it was important for me to put that into the story because it was, as you said, something we talked about a lot. I think not word for word by any means, but I definitely was channeling myself in that conversation as Megan and you as Will, because I feel like that's how some of our conversations have been. And mostly what I've learned from you is just like, honestly, if you have a transgender friend, just ask them. Like, it's gonna be more awkward if you don't. And then you can have a conversation about it and actually know what their thoughts are and check in with them again, because like you said, it can change over time. It certainly seems like it has a bit for you.
Right, just a little bit. And it's just like any other human experience, every single individual has a different experience. So it really is no different than talking to anybody else about a change in their life and how they wish to handle it.
For sure. Yeah, I love that. What about, so like, what were you thinking when I first came to you with the idea to write this story? Because I don't know if you know, but I felt very uncertain if this was something that you would be open to, because it would have been okay if you didn't think it was a good idea. But yeah, what crossed through your mind when I first reached out over this?
I was excited. Like, I can't see it not being a good idea. Like, what would be a bad idea about kind of just normalizing the trans experience and our stories and stuff, and putting it in literature that really has nothing to do with, like an academic style LGBTQ plus category. So I was super excited about it, and I'm very open about my experience, and much of that is to help educate people. And so if we can use our voices together to make something that is fictitious, but very much so based in a a truth and a very real lived experience for multiple people, like absolutely, yes, let's get that out there. I was super excited because it also gave you and I an opportunity to, catch up multiple times. Like, yes, we talked over the years, but that was probably with the most frequency that we were able to jump on video chat and talk and stuff like that. So I loved every single aspect of it. It reconnected us and it really brought Will to life in a very authentic way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I agree with you. I don't know, we probably spent like 10 hours over video calls and
Yep.
then like I had all these questions that would come up for me beyond that while I was writing and send you like pages and pages of questions that you would answer. It was incredible how involved you were, and also reading so many of the drafts and flagging things where you're like, this doesn't sound accurate or this doesn't sound right. And that meant so much to me to have that support along the way.
I think it was a great time to do it too. I mean, right, we're right in the middle of COVID, so I was working less. I was also about to begin moving from California to Texas, and so I had the time to be able to really sit down and like help out with it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. If you want to write 5,000 more stories, I will be there for every single one of them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and what was it like seeing Will come to life? Because as we've alluded to, there are parts of Will that are very, very similar to you. And then of course there's a lot that is fictional.
Right.
So what was that
Mhm.
like?
Um, it's, I don't know. It's like, it was, it wasn't really like reading my story, and it wasn't really like mentoring a younger person who is about to start their journey, or not even a younger person, but somebody who is new to, you know, discovering their gender identity and all that stuff. It was, it, I almost forgot that like I helped you with it, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like there's this character that I can relate to so much, and it was just really cool to see where those parallels were, and yep, I remember saying this, like Danny took this straight from me, or here's where we tweaked this and made it more authentic, or made it more, I don't know, like uh, here's how we should approach this type of thing.
Mhm.
So it was really cool to see Will come to life and to read the journey from Hannah to Will, because I was like, yep, that's spot on, that's spot on, that's spot on. And again, mostly for me, there's other people who are going to identify with it, but maybe not on the same level. So I just thought it was like really cool. It was seeing the whole book, seeing the whole project, seeing that whole character come to life was just like, it's not often that trans people get to relate so closely with a character, whether it's on TV or in a movie or in a book. And so it was really cool to like have somebody I could relate to.
Uh, well, that's amazing to hear as well, because I don't know if I didn't know if I would be able to do that for transgender readers. I know that I have heard from other readers that like, wow, this is the first transgender person I feel like I've met. And I feel like I got to follow on through their journey and understand more, and then gain so much more empathy and get what that process is like. And so I don't know, I guess obviously that's my experience knowing you. And so I was definitely trying to bring that into the story of like, yeah, this is the person that I loved and was so close with on study abroad. And they're a different person now, but they're not. They're still the same person at their core. And like, yeah, I don't know. That was definitely something that was at the core of why I wanted to do it. But then I'm so glad that it also feels authentic enough that transgender people could relate to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And respectful enough, right? Like you knew when you started writing it that like I'm not going to know everything to know, or that there is to know about being trans and all that stuff. Like you wouldn't. So like coming to ask me for help like makes it very authentic, and I think it gives you a lot of like credibility too. It's like, okay, she's gonna go out and do her research and spend hours creating this character. So I think it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I mean, and I certainly did, and I had relied on you so heavily. You also recommended books to me, and did some other research like online just to to check into things myself as well. But I do want to address that because I know that there is also this tendency whenever there's like any marginalized group, those of us not in that group tend to just go to those people and ask them questions and kind of expect them to teach us, which isn't right and it isn't fair. And like, that's not your job. So I thank you for it, but also I'm curious, like you were so open to that, and I know that you're also very involved in like talking to university classes and just being an advocate in different ways. So basically my question is, why are you so awesome? Why do you do this for us? Like, you know?
I I if I'm not gonna do it, that's gonna make somebody else do it, right? And there's plenty of people who would step up and be open and help educate and stuff. But I know me personally, I like teaching, I like interacting with people. I'm also, I think, resilient enough and in a good place mentally, emotionally, all that stuff that I can take those questions. I can take that mental and emotional weight and bear it so it can help other people learn. Like, not everybody is going to want to. Some people just want to transition and live their life and never tell anybody that they're trans. And obviously, in some circles, like I would, that if that's not what we need to talk about, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about work or we're talking about XYZ. But I just really enjoy like helping people and educating people. And I've met plenty of people who are like, I've never met a transgender person. So all they knew about transgender people was online or social media or, through like news headlines and stuff. And then they meet somebody who is trans and they're like, oh, I've literally watched people's brains like come to a screeching halt and rethink their prejudices and all their thoughts that they had about transgender people, and then kind of go forward like, okay, he's pretty cool. I like him. So maybe I was wrong about an entire community of people, and like I should do some more research or like not judge people. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. So I will always continue to like help educate people and teach people, and even if it's just through getting to know me and funny anecdotal experiences. So
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you have been that light for me as well, because I think, and I say this in the acknowledgments of Snapshots of Spain, that I always thought that I was accepting and not prejudiced, but it is so different when you actually know someone, when you can put a face to the name, and now it matters to me. Like if you don't have any experience with somebody who's transgender, it's easy to not think about it, to just write that off, like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But now I have you, and it does matter. And I think it's important that people have some connection. And even if it is just Will, if it's just this fictional character, I hope that people still connected with that and have that kind of moment where it's like, oh, this is somebody I understand and grew to love through this story, and I get what they're going through.
right, and especially since Will, is based off of real life experiences. So it's not, well, this is just fiction. This isn't like this for anybody. Like, absolutely not. Like, there's a lot of parallels there. So, even if they're gonna base it off what they know off of the fictional character, at least that fictional character has a real flesh and blood version somewhere in this world. So
For sure. I know you mentioned a few things that felt very spot on. Do you remember what any of those were? Would you like to share those?
um the whole, like I said, the whole YouTube rabbit hole, like learning, like what the word transgender is. And for me, since somebody told me that, and then I went and Googled it, I was like, okay, yes, this makes sense. But even where Will came to that realization on the Camino of like, okay, it's not, well, even not like came to that realization on the Camino, but then even like going to that dance with Vanessa where somebody said, when she was like, no, this is my girlfriend, and really realizing that the problem, the disconnect that Will was feeling was based on his gender, the girlfriend part of the friend versus saying like a boyfriend. So I very much so connected with that, much like Hannah going through, well, maybe I'm a lesbian, maybe I'm bisexual, maybe this, and then finally going on that journey to become Will. Like, I went through that same thing too. I was like, okay, now I know what this word transgender is, but maybe that's not actually me. Like,
Mm.
maybe I'm gay, maybe I'm XYZ, something else, something easier, something more accepted by society. Um, so there was like so many parts that I connected with, and then even the not transgender related parts, right? Like the being in Spain and finding your friend group and like going out and doing all the things that study abroad students do and taking advantage of living, in another country, another culture and all that to experience. So there was like probably every single paragraph had something I could actually relate to.
Oh, I love that. Very cool. Okay, well, I want to apologize because for some reason my chat was like frozen, and so I didn't see that there were questions coming in.
Oh,
So let's go back. Sorry about that. So a quick question from G. What part of Spain were you guys studying? Just curious to know.
we were in the wonderful city of Alicante on the Mediterranean coast. It was amazing.
It was. Yeah, I love Alicante. We had so many good times there. And I did set a number of other stories in Alicante, so I didn't take the opportunity to put Will in Alicante this time. But I felt like it was fun to play with Santiago and this Camino of like finding her path as well when she was on her early stages. Yeah.
Like that. Liked that parallel a lot. And like I took the class that was all about the Camino de Santiago, but I didn't do it because I went to Ireland. But also I felt like, okay, cool. Like I got to see little parts of that town and little parts of the Camino that I didn't do, but Will Witten did it for me.
Awesome. Yes, I love that. We also have a question from Debbie. How old were you, Billy, when you knew you felt different?
Mhm. That is a good question. I do like to break that down into two different categories. Like I said, I was in Spain in college when I first learned the word transgender from my wonderful roommates back home in Minnesota. So I was 20 or 21. It was right after my 21st birthday. But knowing that I felt different, that something was off, that I didn't like the labels assigned to me, I was young enough to not know how old I was at the time. I was no joke, probably 4 or 5. Like I think my sister was already born and in the picture, and we're 4 years apart. Um, I was very young elementary age. So, and after growing up and doing some research and seeing when gender identity actually develops, it is at that young age, that 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm like, yep, that tracks. Like that's about the time when I realized it, or I was realizing that there are different genders, and I was like, well, wait a minute, why is this one assigned to me? I don't like this one. I don't want this one. I want this one.
Yeah,
I was a little kid. That was like 1994, 1995.
crazy. Yeah, and I remember talking about that, and I definitely worked a bit of that into Will's story as well. Just like these little moments as a kid, because you are so young that you don't necessarily have a concept or again many words for these things, but you were like wondering why some people are boys and some people are girls. Like it didn't make sense to you in the way that it seemed so obvious to
Mhm.
other people.
Just like in the book, like you had that exact same little blurb in there, and that was, yeah,
Wow, that was you. That was you coming
yeah,
through.
yeah.
We also have a Steve Cooper. I love this so much. People are loving you, Will. And it's so awesome to meet you in person. I'm so sad I was missing all of these messages.
I
Oh
could see
my God.
them scrolling. I didn't know what you could see on your end, or if it was, like like if you're gonna get to them after the fact. I don't know how this thing works.
I would have worked them in. I seriously apologize. Don't know why. But I'm glad I've checked because I didn't want to miss these.
Mhm.
But as G was saying, agreed, Danny, it's always a lot easier to stay on the sidelines when you don't really know anyone from that group, and thus when it doesn't matter at a personal level. Yeah, I agree. As I was talking about before, it is so important to be able to put a face to the name. Um,
And Alicante, what a wonderful, amazing place. Oh my goodness. Oh, a somewhat complex question. And of course,
Okay.
feel free not to answer if it's uncomfortable. But Billy, do you feel like your relationship with gender as a whole has changed over the years?
Yes, that's a really good question. And I feel like it has, and I think this is also me speaking now in my 30s after I've, been transitioning for almost 7 years and experiencing more of like the world and meeting people who just meeting more people in like the trans and gender non-conforming community. So it's I think my relationship with gender has gotten a lot better. One, I think gender is stupid. Like, just wear clothes, do whatever you want to do, right? Like, why do we have gender? It was a completely man-made construct that society just lives off of because we like to categorize things and put people in boxes. Um, while I do feel, and I know there's not a gender binary, but I am a binary trans person. So, like, I'm not non-binary. I'm gender non-conforming in some things because I might not be the typical man, but like, I am a trans man. I'm a man. That is the box that I check. But like, I've still played with, like, I'll paint my nails every now and then. I don't care, like, hot pink is one of my favorite colors. I 2 years ago to my holiday party for work, I wore a tuxedo with stilettos. Like, I am comfortable to, play with these different things and like not really. I have purple hair right now. You can't really see because it's very light purple and you have to look at it in the sunlight. But like, so I've gotten a lot more comfortable with gender and a lot more comfortable with my gender, my presentation, how I'm viewed out in the world. But that is still obviously to say that, well, I'm more comfortable with it and I'll kind of just do whatever I want. Like, I also currently live in Texas. So there are some instances where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to this place. I'm going to just wear this and dress like this and, whatever. But I definitely feel like my relationship with gender has changed over the years and gotten better as I've gotten more comfortable with my gender and my body.
Right. Okay. I'm glad to hear that for you. Okay. Well, I think I've seen all the questions. If I missed any or if you have any more, while Billy is here to answer all of our burning questions, please do send them in. But otherwise, I just wanted to take a moment to spotlight you and again to thank you for being here. And like we said, Will is fictional. So there's a lot in there that is not your story. So if people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Well, social media. Like, I think, we put our lives on social media for what people, what we want them to see. But both my Facebook, my Instagram, which obviously you can easily find my Instagram here. Like, I didn't remove any old pictures. I do have posts that are specifically about my transition and my journey and stuff. Um, I don't think my account is open, but I go through and I accept requests and stuff, and you can see like my story, and not just my story as a trans person, but all the other things I do. And then the other side of it, if you want to hear more about my story, was another book that I was a contributing author on. But that is focused on the military side. I just got out of the Air Force after 9 years, 8 months, and 6 days in the Air Force. And I was in the military while we had the ban on transgender open service, and then it was repealed, and then it was banned again, and then it was repealed again. So in that whole tumultuous roller coaster ride, there is a very fantastic group of people, both currently serving and veterans, that collaborated on this awesome book. Here's the title: With Honor and Integrity, Transgender Troops in Their Own Words. So you can find my essay in there. Again, it tells my story, but through the military lens. But that's just another way to find me and support a bunch of other great people, great authors. Otherwise, hit me up on social media, ask questions. Like, I'm very much so open to helping out, whether it's helping you or a relative or a friend or anything. Yeah.
You're amazing. Thank you, Bill. Just one more question I see coming through. Not knowing much about the transgender community, I'm curious to know, do and who do you date?
Well, we could ask him. He's in the other room doing homework, keeping the dogs from freaking out while I'm doing this.
Good job.
They're all sleeping. They were scared of the thunder last night. Everybody's very tired. So yes, that a lot of people ask that question, and it's a very interesting question. And again, it's going to change based on like every trans person. But I have dated throughout, like before I transitioned, after I transit, like during, after my transition, all that stuff. And I've dated trans men, cis women. I don't think I've dated any trans women. People of all varieties, because we're all human. We all have something to contribute. We all have awesome stories. And so for me, that hasn't really changed. Like when I was still in high school and I was like, oh yeah, I'm, just a straight girl growing up in small town Minnesota, did the normal thing and dated boys. And then in college, I was like, something's off, maybe I'm gay. And then I dated women and I was like, well, that's cool, but it doesn't fit the bill. And then, so that I just, don't really care. So it's, so my current relationship, my current boyfriend, like I said, he's sitting in the other room doing homework. He's a cisgender gay man, and it works fantastically. And
There you go.
just got to find somebody that fits you, and every life is a puzzle. Just find the pieces that go together.
Oh, I love that. So just to reiterate that nothing actually changed for you based on your sexual orientation when you realized your gender identity.
No, and I know some people's will. They'll, go from one side of the spectrum to the other. And that's just more so like just being more comfortable in your own body and then like being comfortable letting other people in. For me, it didn't really change because I was always like, whatever. I don't know. I've already been all over the place. Might as well just keep it like this because humans are humans and humans are awesome. So yeah, for me, it didn't really change. Like I have more words to label it if we want labels, but it changed.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I see from Debmar, very enlightening. Glad I joined in. Thank you for sharing and good luck in all you do. So yeah. I think people are very excited and happy to see you here, Billy. It has been, it's just made me so happy to be able to share you with everyone and to share a little bit more of your experience and not only Will's.
I'm very happy I was able to do this with you, like from the whole beginning of the collaboration and creating Will's story and all that, to being here as you're re-releasing and being part of the live chat, because I love interacting with people this way, and of course getting to talk to you is just always an added bonus.
Agreed. Well, thank you. I will just remind people, if you are interested to read Will, it is now available on Amazon, and you can find that on my website, which is Danny J. Norwell. So definitely check that out. Check out the other Snapshots of Spain stories, and remind us the name of the book that your story is in as well.
With Honor and Integrity, Transgender Troops in Their Own Words. And it's also, I believe, on Amazon, hard copy and paper copy.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is a really good chat from G. Thank you so much for your input, with special kudos to Billy for the insights into your own journey. And then I also see, thank you, you're both incredible. Oh, well, thank you guys for joining us. It has been amazing to get to share this conversation with you. And thank you, Billy, for your time. It's really been a pleasure.
Of course. Anytime.
All right. Happy reading, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.